Hello and welcome to Research Methods Validity. This is the partner episode to the reliability video. What we're going to cover is how we assess validity and improve it in relation to a variety of different research methods. So what is validity? There are two types that you're familiar with. We have internal and external. Internal really refers to what's going on in the study, and specifically it's the degree to which the observed effect, the measured dependent variable, the change in it, was the result of something you did deliberately. In other words, the manipulation of the independent variable. So if I prime participants with positive characteristics to do with memory, and then I measure their memory, if they can recall more items, it should be that priming that caused it and not some extraneous or confounding variable. External validity then refers to the degree to which we can apply our research beyond the setting, groups of people that were involved, and to different times as well. So internal versus external. Issues that lead to poor internal validity include, but are not exclusively consistent of, investigator effects. The mere presence of the investigator affects it, their biases, their sometimes leading questions, and the way they frame different tasks. Demand characteristics. Participants work out what the purpose of the experiment is and engage in the screw you effect, or try to be good little participants and get you the results they want you to have. Confounding variables, these are ones that you haven't accounted for in your study, so these are extraneous variables that could provide an alternative explanation for the results. Social desirability bias, my favourite, and one of the biggest issues in psychological research. Are you asking people to behave in a way that by doing so they want to portray themselves in the best possible social light? And of course, poor operationalization of behavior categories, or indeed the dependent and independent variables. External validity then. Three types that you need to know. One is population validity. Is the population, is your sample representative of the population as a whole? And is that population a valid population? Temporal, can you apply your research to other times? And ecological validity, can you apply it to different environments? So you carried out a lab experiment, can you now apply that to the real world? External validity is the easiest one to get a head around, so let's breeze through this. Ecological validity is generalizing it beyond the setting, the environment. Ecological. This word is about your surroundings, your environment. So again, if we carry out this complex laboratory experiment, can we apply it? Equally, if we're carrying out a very natural experiment, but that's very niche, that's very specific, think about the research on Romanian institutions by Rutter. These were very unique places. Can you then say, we'll take that research and apply it to British institutions, British orphanages, American orphanages? Very, very difficult to do that. Temporal validity. Do your results stack up over time? Can you apply your research retroactively to past results? And indeed, does it stand up to future replications? And population validity. The sample you are using, does it represent the population from which it's drawn? And often what we find is most research involves students who are not representative of the population that the experimenter wants to talk about. So the experimenter wants to carry out his research on students, but then apply that to the wider society. Another crucial element of this, which is linked to ecological validity specifically, is this concept of mundane realism. And really this refers to the tasks that participants are asked to perform. So if you think about revising word lists as a measure of memory, is that actually how we use memory in real life? We don't go around often memorizing lists of random words. So these are three types of validity that are related to the external elements of a study. How do we assess validity then? Well, to be fair, it involves comparing the current test questionnaires with existing ones. And we call this concurrent validity. So if you have a test, take Milgram's test, Milgram's behavioural test. He had no way really of comparing his findings because no one had carried out anything similar in his experiment. But take an IQ test, there are hundreds, possibly even over 1,000 different tests purporting to measure intelligence. These can then all be measured against each other, and if they are consistent, they have concurrent validity, then we can say that they have some validity, that they are measuring what we say they're measuring. The degree to which the test looks like on the face of it to be measuring what we say it is, or what it should be measuring, is called face validity. And this is not a robust test, but you get a feel for it. If you are filling in a questionnaire or you're taking part in an experiment and it seems to be measuring what you think it measures, then that kind of fits this face validity criteria. That's usually the first one that every researcher conducts, and then concurrent validity. There is a third one that involves the contacting of experts. So in some situations it may be appropriate, for example, to run your test by an expert who's carried out many of these tests in the field, and he can often, or she can often, help you iron out some of these issues. But you don't necessarily need to know that, but it's worth coming and ask me if you want to know more. Improving validity then. If we have low face validity, then we can revise the question. So if we're giving out questionnaires and we have a look at it and we say, or we get other people to have a look at it and we say, I don't think that's measuring what you think it's measuring. Think about the authoritarian personality, F scale, all the questions encourage you to agree with them, and therefore may simply be measuring agreeableness. So that sort of questionnaire has low face validity. Don't forget, you should have a copy of the F scale in your AS notes. Revisit it, it's worth having a look and see if it has face validity. If your study has low concurrent validity, you can remove irrelevant questions or elements and check the concurrent validity again. And if your study or experiment suffers from low internal or external validity, then really what you can do is redesign your experiment. One of the things that will help you improve the internal validity, reduce investigator effects, demand characteristics, is to have a double-blind procedure in which neither the participant nor the experimenter knows which condition they are in. Are they in the experimental or the control? They don't know, and neither do you. This reduces demand characteristics. External validity, an improved sample using a different method, such as random sampling or even stratified. Control and realism. Something to remember about internal validity and laboratory experiments in a more broad context compared to other types of method is we're always weighing up control and realism. As you tighten up on the control, you tend to loosen up on the realism, and vice versa. And really this becomes just a balancing act where the researcher is trying to find a happy medium where he can say, yes, I've controlled most of the extraneous variables, reduce the possibility of confounding ones, but realistically, if I clamp down any more, it will affect my ability to generalize, and it will lack even more mundane realism. So it is this balancing act between control and realism. That is validity. It's a bit quicker than reliability. We've looked at face and concurrent forms of validity as they pertain to internal. External, we've looked at ecological, temporal and population, and we've talked about improving it. That's all you need to know for this session. If you want to stay with me, we'll go through an exam question. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Okay, glad you stuck around. So, validity, exam style questions. Briefly outline two other types of validity in psychological research. So they're obviously going to name one and ask you to come up with the other two. In this case, I've included all three because I can just copy and paste. But really, 4 marks, 2 marks per explanation. One for naming it, one for explaining. So the old name and explain procedure. Pick the two that you feel most comfortable, and actually something I have not done here, which I would always recommend, is potentially provide an example. It says psychological research, so you don't have to stick with experiments. You can talk about literally any method. So this sort of question is absolutely ideal, pure A01. This is also a nice little A01/A02 question. A student thought that having a dog and a lead was a useful measure of considerate sort of pet ownership behaviour because it has face validity. Explain what this means. There's our definition. Face validity refers to X and them. On the face of it, having a dog on a lead seems to have face validity, as this means the dog cannot interfere with people coming close by, chasing, biting, etc. 1 mark. This shows that the owner has considered the effects the dog might have on others. You could expand this a little bit, but for a 3 marker, that's the sort of question. So you've got 1 mark for A01 and 2 marks essentially for A02. You're applying it. A03 questions, these will purely involve you having to explain how you would improve the validity of a study. They might give you a generic study, or they might give you a scenario. So it could be an A02/A03 or just a pure A03 question. Some further questions that you might get asked: explain why temporal validity might be an issue in social influence research. That's a good one. Explain how validity can be addressed in a questionnaire. You know this one now. Explain how internal validity could be improved in an experiment. All basically 3 mark answers. Remember, much of this stuff could be used in your 12 and 16 markers as well. So when you're writing your 16 markers, you could talk about a study lacking temporal validity, if it does, obviously. So that's us done for the day. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.